And that's when you don't even have to worry about Tinder. You don't have to worry about, going online. You don't have to worry about sleeping with your ex. Your ex is not like, it's like, oh, that guy, oh my gosh, I've so grown past that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are on. Welcome back today with my guest June Morrow on another episode of I'm Too Old for This Shit podcast. I'm Angie, and I guess I'm too old to take any kind of shit now, and so are my guests. If you don't know me, I'm Angie and the founder of angies.com. That's angie-s.com, link in the show notes. Well, I'm a health and skincare consultant. I help women who don't fit into the extremes implement healthier habits that don't manage them. I'm about tips and tricks that work, make sense, and just help you stay on top of it without making you bored to tears. We're talking what you eat, put on your skin, and do to feel your best. And because we are all so freaking busy, we're keeping it fun and irreverent, okay? So I created this podcast because I wanted to talk about well-being beyond food, skincare, and meditation. I wanted to have guests on who can share their wisdom on relationships, sex, dating, owning a business, mental health, and basically all of these things that I am also excited and curious about, but I have also experienced the ups and downs of, which most of us have. So I truly hope that you find this useful and helpful. So today I brought June on to talk about dating. So I don't know about you, but I find dating sometimes very confusing. It's challenging. It can be exciting, and it can also be very disappointing. And not just disappointing with someone else, but also just with myself. Sometimes I don't always do or say the right thing, and sometimes I talk too much as well. And I bet you're not surprised about that bit. And yes, and one thing before I go into the episode is I want to clarify, I mentioned alpha guys and how I like an alpha guy. And what I realize is that not everyone has the same definition of that. So I was just going to give you my definition. What an alpha guy is not to me is not this big muscly guy who's like pounding on his chest and shouting at me and pulling me down the street by my hair. Oh, hell no, that's not what an alpha guy is at all. That's quite the opposite, to be quite honest. This whole peacocking, not my thing. For me, an alpha guy is someone who, one, is responsible, two, likes to lead. Doesn't mean he's controlling. When I say he likes to lead, is that he'll say, I'm coming over, I'll pick you up at 7, and then he takes me out. He just, that kind of stuff. It's just really nice for me as a woman. I like that. He makes sure I'm okay when I'm with him. He makes sure I'm relaxed. And he likes to do things for me. It's a bit less talk, more actions. And also, very importantly, he's someone who pushes back. He doesn't just let me roll all over him and decide everything. To me, that kills the attraction for me. I like someone who has a bit more pushback, a backbone, basically, someone with a backbone. And yeah, that's it. Now, that's not for everyone. Some women don't like that, and that's perfectly cool with you. Like, just gotta, there's just, what's the expression? There's a foot for every shoe, something like that. So yeah, don't think love and attraction is PC. It's not supposed to be politically correct. You like what you like, and that's it. For me, like the fabric of a man, like his essence, that is super important. The rest, I don't really care, is not as important. So that to me, that's the alpha guy. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to June. Let's go ahead with the episode. So today we have June on. June is a breath of fresh air because she is so transparent, she's honest, and listen, she used to be a lap dancer and she even coached men for their dating lives. So she definitely has a lot of information to offer us in this interview, and I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. So without further ado, hi June, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Angie.
Okay, so I'm so excited because I think today is going to be fun with you. The reason why actually I want to have you on is because I love how open you are, and it's so easy to talk with you. So we're here today to talk about dating, because you wrote a book about it. You've got a lot of experience. You've coached people in that. So before we get cracking with this, could you please introduce yourself, what you do, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Okay. How much time do you have? It's a long story, but I'm going to do the cold notes version. So I'm June Morrow, and I am a clarity coach. And what I specialize in now is helping people get on the path to their highest potential. So I help people connect with their calling and step into those lives that they feel like, you know what, I could live that life. Yes, like if they're in a place where they're like, I'm not really living the life that I'm meant to, or there's more for me out there, and they sense that. I help people figure out what the next steps are and how to get on the path to that and how to start making momentum and really grow as an individual and make the difference you were born to make. So how I got there, short version is way back around, oh gosh, what, not 20, but maybe 15 years ago. I spent 6 years as an exotic dancer. So that's a stripper. Yeah, pole dancer. I know you have them in the UK as well, lap
Oh
dancer,
gosh, yeah. I mean,
all those
everywhere.
things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and although I loved it at the beginning, by the end of it, I really felt trapped and I really felt stuck. And I really felt like I was in a place where I was not supposed to be in my life. And yet I didn't have the confidence to know that, like, who's going to hire me? I'm a stripper. Like my skills are taking off my clothes and seducing men, right? And getting, extracting money from dudes. And so I was feeling pretty low and I was feeling really, really stuck. And one day in the change room, there was, I saw a newsletter, like a printed newsletter, because this was back in the day, the internet was just new. And it was a newsletter that was put out by strippers for strippers. And it was by this group called the Exotic Dancers Alliance. And I saw this and I thought, oh my gosh, I could write for this. I'm a stripper and I know how to write. Or at least I thought I did. I'd always enjoyed writing and always been good at it in school. So I pitched them an article about dancing with the pole and how the pole never rejects you for a dance and all this stuff. And it was kind of cheesy, but they accepted it. And I was so terrified pitching this because I'd never done anything like that in my life. And that led to, over time, I started pitching more articles. I took on as editor of that newsletter, and then I took on as like editor. I started pitching to community newspapers and writing stuff not about stripping. And I started just basically like writing wherever I could for free, and getting a portfolio of works together. And that led to me getting accepted into a postgraduate journalism program where I was able to quit stripping. And then that led to me working for magazines and doing arts reporting, and all this writing. And then once I got into writing full time, I realized I really miss being on stage, although I didn't want to be on stage with my clothes off anymore. And I thought, what can I do? And I love expressing myself. Self expression is one of my big values in life. So I started doing stand up comedy on stages around Toronto and Ontario, Canada, which is where I'm based. And that was really fun. And my goal there was just to get like a solid 30 minutes together and start getting paid for it, which I did. And then that led to me doing a one-woman show, which I took all across Canada, over a summer, which was miraculous. And all of this kind of petered into other job opportunities. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just following my passion. I was kind of like, as you make one step in the direction of your dreams, the path lights up for you. Sometimes you don't see the end, and that's okay. What's most important is action. So I was just taking action and I was following things that I was interested in and enjoying my time. And I wound up working in corporate communications for a government, where I was able to use like all the stuff I developed on like public speaking and writing. And, for a while I had a video blog that I did where I went out once a week and I reported on things to do in Toronto. Anyway, all these different things all came together in corporate communications, but I realized, after a while I was like, no, government is not really where I'm supposed to be again, even though it was where I was supposed to be for a little while. And I thought, I need to do something. And I'd had like so much experience with men, not just as a stripper, but I dated so many men. And I had been married for a long time, not dating so many men while I was married. But when I was divorced, I was like, oh my gosh, now I can, finally go out and have that Sex in the City moments that I've always wanted and dreamt about while I was married. And I went out and I found that I was not having that Sex in the City moments. And I thought, okay, how can I actually have this moment? Because I was, by this time I was like 43 And I knew I wasn't getting any younger, but I was still pretty young. I was still pretty foxy. And I was like, you know what? I really want to have this moment. So I studied and I looked at all these dating coaches like Mark Evan Cates and what's his name, Matthew Hussey, and all these experts. I read like tons and tons of books. I studied the pickup artist community to see what they knew. I like what I went to workshops and I did a lot of work on myself. And in 1 year, I took all this stuff out on dates and I went on over 100 dates in 1 year. And I tried all this stuff I was learning. And doing that really kind of like opened my eyes to some things that I had not been doing right and opened my eyes to some things that could work. And I wound up meeting like all these really, really great people. And so I started doing workshops just on the side to men and women. And people were hungry for more because they were like, I hate dating. Dating is horrible. It's like, I'd rather gouge my eyes out with a broken beer bottle than go out on a date. I was like, what? Dating's so much fun. So I wrote this book, Love Lessons from a Lapdancer, which kind of combines everything that I'd learned about gender intelligence, about men, insights that I'd seen working in strip clubs, a side of men that you would not expect, and also the things that I learned about myself and about love and about dating, during my 100 dates in a year, and also previous relationships that I'd had in my 20s before I met my ex-husband, and that all came together into a kind of like a side hustle as a dating coach, which I did for about a year. And then I realized that what people were coming to me for were people wanted tips on like, what are 5 texts to get the guy, or what are some practical things that I can do to make people love me. And I would look at this and think this is coming at it from the wrong angle, because really, if you want to attract a healthy love, if you want to attract a relationship that respects you and a relationship that's got legs and a relationship that's going to go the distance, you need to start by loving yourself and loving your life. Right. And I know everybody says this. Everyone says, yeah, but I need attention now. Right.
Well, do they need attention, or do they just need to scratch an itch or have an ego boost?
Or,
Those are very different things. Yeah.
Exactly, because it is those things, right? Like scratching the neck itch and having like, you go on Tinder, you're like, oh, I'm bored at work. Work sucks today. Let's see who likes me on Tinder. Right. It's really twisted, like the way that we're validating ourselves using technology and people who we don't really know.
Using exes for that too,
Oh, and using exes. Yeah. And really, like, what I wanted to say to my clients was like, you need to sit with yourself and you need to really feel what you're feeling and find some ways to get that yourself. Right. Like, and I just wanted to tell everyone, like, just, start living the life you love. Take care of yourself. Fall deeply and madly in love with yourself and with your life. And so I kind of realized like that is really what I'm here for. Is I'm here to help people remember who they are, like deep down inside. That burst of potential that you are when you're born, before all the shit happens with your parents and all that. Can I swear? Is that okay?
Oh gosh, I swear. No, go on.
Okay,
It's
because I can get
PG-18 on here. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, before all the like childhood wounding and bullying and whatever you go through, and we all have it. Like we're all messed up, no matter how perfect your parents were. We're all messed up in some way, shape, or form. So it's about like looking for that within yourself, and so that's kind of when I pivoted towards helping people recognize who they really are and really like love and embrace that and bring that out to the world. Because when you bring your passion out to the world, when you show the world who you really are and what you're really capable of, people flock to you. You are a magnet.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that's when you don't even have to worry about Tinder. You don't have to worry about, going online. You don't have to worry about sleeping with your ex. Your ex is not like, it's like, oh, that guy. Oh my gosh, I've so grown past that. Right.
Yeah. But I mean, the way that is why maybe like in terms of like scratching an itch, those are kind of the easiest if enough time has gone by, because you're not going to fall back into that trap, or not that trap is a bad word, but I think it's like, it's when it's more familiar, when someone knows you feel more comfortable. So in terms of like, if someone is doing it to scratch an itch, I mean, I'd rather be with someone I know. I don't like being with a stranger, but that's just my preference. You know what I'm saying? So some people would get off much better with a stranger. That's just not me. So I guess, but in terms of you, but that's also in a way is kind of I find empowering to know that you sort of can be friends, but you sort of don't feel like you feel like you're sort of looking for something else now, and you're
Oh,
okay.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Like
Mm.
I have a friend with benefits. Like I'm single now. In my book,
Okay. Yeah.
I ended in love, but that didn't work out. Whatever, right?
It's I'm single too, so
But no, I have a good friend with benefits who scratches my itch, right? And we're both
yeah.
very clear. Neither of us are interested in the long-term relationship, but we're compatible in enough ways that like in friendly ways that we know that we can sleep together. We're not going to fall madly in love with each other. It's not going to happen, and we're
Mm.
kind of serving that need for now.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that only works if you're like aware of it, because I think
yeah,
it can be a dangerous path, and definitely don't do it with someone you still have feelings for. I'm just, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's one of
yeah.
those things like then it's like, oh, it's like the emotional hangover. The afterwards is awful because you're like, oh, what is the, did you feel like you've, I mean, it can make you feel diminished and stuff, but if it's someone that you on the same level with, then that's fine. You know what, you there's so many things that you mentioned. Actually, I know that there's all these, I have all kinds of questions for you that I've already that prepared in advance, which we're going to go into, but I sort of want to circle back into some of the things you mentioned. And so there was something quite interesting actually, because you mentioned that like the pole never rejects you,
Yeah.
right? And but then it's funny because I never thought about that, because what I used to always think is that the stripper never rejects them, and that, I mean, there's no commitment. So the stripper, she's working, and the guy, it's kind of like why they go there. They know they can be there, they can watch, they can enjoy, watching a beautiful woman
Mhm.
dancing, and it's a beautiful thing. And they're not rejected individually. The men are not rejected, so it's kind of like a liberating thing, right? And also, I've never thought that actually, yeah, the pole never rejects the stripper, and the stripper never rejects the guy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how it works in the UK, but in Canada, in Ontario, in the province where I live, strippers make all of their money not on stage. They make their money selling lap dances.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So
But that's, yeah. So go
yeah,
on.
yeah. So your job on stage is like advertising, but your job is actually going table to table and trying to, you know, convince men that it's, for 20 or $30 a song, whatever it is now, that it's worth 20 or $30 a song to spend some time with you in the back where you get naked for them. So it's really like it's a sales job, and
Yes.
it's not like the money rains down on you. It really doesn't. Like it's a competitive industry. There aren't that many people who go to strip clubs anymore compared to what it used to be, because of the internet, because so much else is available. And it's a hustle. Like you need to hustle, and so you do get rejected repeatedly throughout the
Yeah.
day.
I mean,
And it's not rejecting you; it's rejecting, I don't want to spend this money for a dance with you. So that's what I meant when the pole never rejects you, because the pole is always willing to like have fun with you and be your partner, even if you're going table to table and everybody's like, no, 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 no.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, I was not aware of that. Anyway, so I mean,
Yeah,
I've never stripped, so
yeah.
I don't know. But I do know there's definitely hustling and sales, because I did have last year, like, she's now a business coach, and she used to be a stripper, and she uses all of her, like,
Hmm.
what she's learned from hustling
Yeah,
back then into business.
yes.
And yeah, I mean, she had to get really creative. So yeah, it's not an easy thing. Okay, well, so I got that completely wrong, so that's good to know. It's good to know. Yeah, I did not think about that at all. Okay, so you mentioned about the pickup artist, when you mentioned about how, when you researched everything, is the pickup
Hmm.
artist the thing for men, or how to pick up women?
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't it
So
the one? It's quite dark, isn't it? Like they sort of like, it's how to lure you in, or
yeah, so it's kind of a non-thing now. It's kind of, I think it's past. Its time has passed. There's still some PUA, like PUA is what they call it, but pickup artist communities out there. It really started with like Neil Strauss wrote this book called The Game, and there was this guy named Mystery about 10 years ago who was teaching guys how to like go into clubs and pick up women and get laid. Um, so yeah, it can be like really icky on the, when you look at it from that perspective, as if it's just a bunch of guys who want a notch in their belt. But the other side of the pickup artist industry that I found, like researching it, is it's really about teaching men how to have confidence. And it's about teaching men how to go beyond their comfort zone and how to be rejected or take risk of being rejected without taking it personally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
there's a real personal development aspect to it that I found fascinating.
I mean, I have to say, I'm really glad I'm not a dude, because like the amount of time they get rejected, I'm sure, like, like this is why, like, if a guy comes up to me and I'm not, then I know I'm not into, I'll
Mhm.
always make sure I'm polite about it and graceful, because I know like it takes guts. I'm not saying that the guy would, there's no way of knowing the guy has good or bad intentions. And plus it's not relevant, because the person doesn't know you. They're just trying to come and talk to you, right? But I think to always make sure that, because it's sort of like, I sort of like, maybe in the US and in Canada it's different. I think men are a bit more aggressive and they'll come up to you.
Not
Although
in
maybe now,
Canada.
no, in Canada, okay. Because here in London, it's like, unless they're drunk, I mean, I know
Yeah.
people are not gonna like what I say, but like the difference, like from when I was in New York, or the difference when I go to Belgium and France, like of men
Hmm.
will come up to me a lot more. Whereas in London they do, but it's like they're just much more reserved about it. They almost don't
Yes.
want to be impolite. So when they do, I'm like, oh, that's really sweet, but I'll just say I have a boyfriend or something. But like
Yeah.
there's, I think sometimes women can be really mean about it and be like, oh no, in what world? And it's just like it's not needed. It's
No.
really I see. Okay, so um. Yeah, so I wanted to ask, and then we'll go into it. Like, how did you get 100 dates in 1 year? I want to know, because I don't even know if I have the energy, and I don't like the app. So how did you get 100 dates in 1 year?
So it was a combination of different things. One was going out to a lot of events and meeting people, and I tend to meet
Ah,
people so easily at events. Like I go out to an event and like I'll connect with people, and I connect with them on a friendly basis. I don't usually expect anything of it. It's just like, oh, let's chat about what's happening at the event. So it was a combination of that. I was also on OkCupid. So I was online. So I was meeting people online. I was meeting people. I think I went on Tinder for a little bit. So I was using Tinder as well. So I think those three things were the main ways that I met people. And yeah, and it would just be like setting people up. It's yeah, I think it's just, if you're open and you're friendly to people, then people approach you. And it's a vibe that I think men can read or not read. Like if you're like I met someone in line for a movie. How random is that?
yeah.
We dated for maybe 3 months. And I was just in line for a movie and he was behind me and someone assumed we were together and he was like, no, we're not. And we joked about it. And then after the movie, we bumped into each other again and he's like, can I bring you for ice cream? And I'm like, sure, why not? And then we wound up dating for a little bit. So it's just about being like open and smiling and like, but it's got to be like you need to be open to it. And I think part of
Yes.
that too, and this is hard for women, and I acknowledge this, is feeling safe in yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And feeling like if that guy had said come back to my car, like hell no, right? But I'm
Yeah.
like it's an ice cream parlor, it's down the street from the theater, I can do this, this is safe, and then he offers to drive me home and I'm like no, but like give me your number and perhaps we'll get together another time. So it's it's
Yeah.
it's it's finding ways to feel safe in the environment, like physically safe, but also emotionally safe, and know that you can handle yourself with this person, even though they're cute, turns out to be not so great.
Yeah, you see, I think this is where my downfall is, because I do I mean, when I go out, I do meet people, and that's usually not so much of a problem, but I think,
Yeah.
but because I'm busy and I do need, like, I'm a bit more of an introvert, so I do need to be alone to sort of recharge, and I enjoy to just spending time alone.
Mhm.
Um so, but the online dating, I don't feel safe. You know, we're saying about the safe thing. And
Yeah.
even when I do try, I mean, I have met people, and I did have a boyfriend. I did have a boyfriend I met online years ago, but it's just like often they're just like chit chat, and it's hard to go from there to meet in person. And also for me to feel safe, I need to have a chat on the phone. So there's
Mhm.
lots of like hurdles for me in my mind. So it's like I want to have a chat on the phone, and sometimes some guys who want to meet straight away, like I don't feel safe with that. So I need to hear their voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've just come off it completely, because I just don't. For me, it doesn't work.
But
But
what's wise about that, Angie, is that you know what you need to feel safe, and you don't make exceptions. Like if you want to talk to a guy online, like if you want to talk to a guy on the phone and he says, no, I just want to meet you in person, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
You don't want to meet
Yeah.
that guy anyway. But if you're like, you know what, I really need to feel comfortable, talking to someone on the phone before I meet in person to make
Yeah.
sure that we actually, and that is such a good idea, talking on the phone.
Yeah,
And
because
who talks on the phone anymore, right?
I know, but it's just like, and I think they get scared, and I think it's like because I just say like just to see how we get on. Because
Yeah.
I don't know, on text is really easy. You can take, you don't know, like it may have taken you 45 minutes to send like these 2 words and you sounded really funny. But then on the
Mm-hmm.
phone, you can't really do that on the phone and in person. It's just like live and straight, it's
Yes.
direct. And so, yeah, you just want to see what people are like first. Let me just, I want to go into, if you don't mind, like the experience you had when you were a dating coach.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, was just before you wrote the book. So you were coaching both men and women. So
Mm-hmm.
my question is this: when you were a dating coach, what did men come to you for, and was it different to what women came to you for?
Yeah, so let me think about that. So the guys that I coached, they were guys typically who would get stuck in the friend zone. So they were like, why am I continually being friended? Why do I not, why am I attracted to these women and I'm really friendly with them and I do everything that they, I seem to be the perfect guy and they like hanging out with me, but they're not having sex with me.
Yeah,
Right?
you see, it's like, in my mind, it's like, well, that's because because you're their friends, like they probably don't see, they may not see
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
haven't
that's most guys, right? I mean, that's most men.
yeah, because you
Yeah,
haven't shown yourself as somebody who is sexually desirable, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
haven't kind of like you haven't valued yourself enough to say like if I'm not getting what I want from this person, I'm going to move on. And this is like a similar thing between men and women, but it happens in different ways. So the women would come to me and they'd be like like it would be varied things. Sometimes it would be like, why do great guys keep breaking up with me? Sometimes it would be like, why do guys keep using me sexually? Sometimes it would be, why can't I meet anybody that I connect with? Like I think with women there would be more varied reasons that they would come to me. But ultimately with both of them, it all came down to, well, because you're not putting yourself first. You're putting
Like,
someone else first in your life. And when you do that, that other person's going to come first and you're not going to get what you want.
yeah, that's actually very true. Actually,
Yeah.
because I was actually almost like gonna counter argue with you for a second, but actually, I'm just like, no, actually, this is right. But I was just thinking about, like the friend zone, because sometimes it is just because there is no chemistry, so you just can't
Yes.
force it. So if someone, like, to me, sexual chemistry is very important. For some people, it isn't. Some people, they will look at other qualities,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at other qualities. But if I can find, if I, if the character trait is there and, they're a good person and so on and so on, and we get on well, but if there's no sexual chemistry, I can't get on that boat. I can't get on the ship. Well,
No.
some people can. So sometimes it's just down to that too. There's also, I know, like, there are guys that, like, that in my mind are very, I've got male friends who are very, I mean, that, when I say feminine, like the feminine energy, like they just want to
Mm-hmm.
talk all the time. They're always talking about feelings, and they
Mm-hmm.
always know to put themselves in someone else's shoe. And that, for me, there's a lack of polarity. So there's not that magnetism. Like, I like someone who's quite traditional and alpha. So, but some women love that those guys are like that. So they'll be a better match for someone else, right? But
Mm-hmm.
eventually, if someone comes to a dating coach and asks you, why am I always in the friend zone? That means that person has one more and being friend is not enough. So they should probably actually, like you said, put themselves first. And I would
Yeah.
say they probably would then walk away or actually come to a resolution and just accept and not pining over that person anymore. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
would recommend. Like to the guys, I'd be like, well, what you have to do is stop seeing that person. You have to tell them
Yeah.
that you think they're amazing. You want a relationship with them. You don't see it going anywhere. So, you're moving on. And if that person changes their mind, they'll be there if they're available.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is the same thing a woman would say to a guy. Like, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. Because otherwise people are just, they're suffering, they're making themselves suffer for so
Yeah.
long. And so, but was there, so okay, so that's interesting. So men are like, why isn't this starting? And the women are like, why is it ending?
Yes. Yeah. Or
Interesting.
why am I like being used continually? Or why am I,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because sometimes you can see that, people sometimes they just get triggered, right? They're like they'll react over something that's actually from for someone else is like there's no reason to even react. But then it goes the other way around too, because we all have a little thing where we'll get triggered, and most people would be like, no, that's nothing. You're worrying over nothing. But when you're in there and you're in your emotions, right? And I don't know, do you think that's how also people like ruin their chances with something that's actually could be good, but that's maybe why things aren't moving forward?
Oh, I've definitely seen that. Yeah, I've seen people who it comes down to kind of like knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing, emotional intelligence. Also, knowing the difference between being triggered and trusting your intuition.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. How
Yeah.
on earth do you know the difference?
So generally you need to take some time. This is what I suggest. If you're somebody who tends to fly off the handle at things or blame other people really fast and like, shoot them a nasty email if they say something that upset you that they might not even know what they did, take some breaths, give yourself a day before responding if you can. Like
Yeah.
sit on it, breathe deeply into it. If you know how to meditate, meditate on it and really feel into what's actually happening in your body right now. And where have you felt that before in your life?
Yeah.
Because what you're doing, like a lot of relationship stuff is we replay old stories, right? And
Gosh,
so
yeah.
it's kind of like recognizing in that moment if you're feeling triggered by what somebody said, whether you feel rejected or whether you feel angry or whatever it is, it's really slowing down your emotion and kind of taking yourself out of the current moment and being like, is this an actual injustice that is real, or is this an injustice that I'm carrying around with me and playing out continually in different relationships?
But you see, but until you actually have that conversation, let's say with someone like you, or
Yeah.
because like I think if you go to a friend who has,
Yeah.
it's like the blind leading the blind, you'd be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what an asshole. And you're like, that it's just not helping because
Yeah.
your friends, like there's nothing worse when your friends go, oh, but you're amazing. He should just be adoring you. And you're like, no, actually, like none of us are that amazing.
Yeah.
We're all amazing and we're not, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we do fuck up big time a lot. And
Yeah,
I do,
and
I
don't
do
don't
mess
get me
up.
wrong. Like
Yeah.
sometimes men are total dicks and they're total pricks,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
people are, and that's just a douchey thing to say. And then
Yes.
it's not like oh, I need to do some inner child work. It's like it's like saying I do not stand for this kind of behavior,
Yeah,
right? It's
but I
saying
think, but I think when you're in the emotions, like you're saying, whether you're being, if you're being triggered because you're just replaying a story in your
mhm,
mind, like when you're in those emotions, unless someone has someone like you to hold on to go and go, hey, can I just have a quick chat? Like, what's your professional
mhm,
opinion on this? Versus, because when you is in hindsight, that's when people like, that's when you're like, oh my God, I wish I didn't do that, I hadn't done that, or I hadn't said that. Because in
right,
hindsight your emotions clear up and you see clearer. You're like, oh, actually I was the one who was nasty here, not
yeah.
him
Well,
or
that's
her.
why you can
Yeah.
just I mean, without all the therapy and the stuff, just take space. Like
Yeah,
when you find yourself really riled up, do nothing.
I
Just
agree. Yeah, I
do
agree.
nothing.
Yeah.
Don't answer. He can wait. He can stew on it, whatever, if he is. And just take some space. Take like a day to kind of really think about it and get away from your immediate emotions and let things simmer down and then look at things with a clearer head. Because when our like parasympathetic nervous system is overloaded, we don't think straight.
Oh, absolutely. We go
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and I love what you just said, because, like taking space and time, because guys do it all the time and not don't feel bad about it. But it's
Yeah.
actually quite a healthy thing to just go, you know what, I just need a minute here. So
Yeah.
what do you do? So let's say that's over text or over, the person is not in the room. So the person doesn't see your facial expression, right? But if
Mhm.
you're in the room with them and you get triggered, what do you do?
You can say, like, you know what, I need a moment here. You can say, I feel upset at this moment and I'm going to take a moment and then I would like to talk to you later, but I just need a moment. And then you can leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without blowing up, you can just be like, you know what? I need a moment to myself. And there's nothing wrong with taking time to yourself.
Yeah, and I guess like would you say like would you add
Like I feel upset. I just need a moment. Like I don't even know if it's about you right now. I just need like just a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that way, because I think if someone said to me, "Oh, I'm upset," I'd be like, "Oh, what did I do?" And I'll be like worried, or I'll be pissed off because I'm like, "Why are they like what's going on?
Yeah.
I've done nothing."
Yeah. No, that's like, and that's assuming you're like already dating the person, you have somewhat
Yeah.
of a relationship. If it's a new person and they piss you off, like, then no, get away from,
Oh,
right? That is a flag. It's like if it's someone you don't know, they come up to you in a bar or in a public place and they say something that pisses you off, then you know, like, that's not a good person to be around. I'm not going to engage.
oh yeah, and you do have to choose who you get triggered for. I mean, if it's like a
Yeah.
first date, who cares? You
Exactly.
know,
But
it's
it's
like
the,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think also with that, you know, like you were saying, you know, we were talking about, you know, being anxious and people being triggered, and then, you know, people, you know, they may send a nasty email, a nasty text, and, you know, I think most of us have been
Mm-hmm.
guilty of doing that or receiving it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the things, or like, and I think a lot of it sometimes is also feeling entitled. So sometimes, like, you know, I hear friends who go, "Oh, I can't believe that he didn't do this or he did," and I'm like, wait a minute, like it's just a lot of it is like expectations, and I think
Yeah.
if we don't do, sometimes I try and put myself in the shoes of, okay, so if this was my friend, would I actually say that to a friend? Like, would I say to a friend, wait a minute, why aren't you calling me every single day? Why have I not heard from you? Why are you not asking if I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay? Like, I wouldn't do that to a friend. So why are we
Yeah.
doing that to someone we're still getting to know
Yes.
and who really doesn't, we don't owe each other anything. Like, if, I'm talking
No.
about dating, right? So, but even in a relationship, you wouldn't want to, because if someone, like the feeling of obligation is a real killer, right? It's just like, you may want to, I'll give you an example. Okay. I'll give you an analogy to this. So for example, when I go home and see my mom, I actually do want to go and hoover and do the dishes and like help out in the house, right? That's like my natural mode when I'm with her. But the minute she sort of, not anymore, but she used to do that when I was younger, obviously. When I was living at home, the minute she say, well, "When are you going to do this?" or "When are you going to hoover it?" And I was
Yeah.
be like, I was immediately put off because I was like, I was going to do it. Like, why are you like making me feel like I have to? Like
Mm-hmm.
when I was like, all of a sudden, the desire to do it for someone is gone because you feel obligated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think if we do that, if we think about this, it's a good way to remind for women to go, like, when they're dating, look, you wouldn't say, would you say this to a friend or to a family member? Or maybe friend, probably, because family member is a bit weird, but like to a friend. And if his answer is no, it's like, well, probably then don't do it. Don't say it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have such a good point there because expectations will kill you.
Yes. Oh,
It's it's
yes. It's
it's
the worst.
it's your expectations. Like, oh, he should know. That is the worst. So one, you have to realize if you're a heterosexual woman and you're dating a heterosexual man, you're actually dating someone whose brain works very different than yours. You know, he speaks a different language. He thinks in a different way. Like there's commonalities for sure. You know, we're all human. But men think very different than women. And so, you know, women feel, you know, we feel safe and we feel loved when there's contact. And men, that's not really necessarily how they always feel safe or feel loved. Right. So
Yeah.
it's keeping in mind too. And men, they when it comes to who am I going to commit to, they typically move a lot slower.
Yeah. But
Right.
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And I think I think there's a difference between expectations and standards. So let's say, I think,
Mm.
you know, like, I mean, I think you and I, we understand that, like, you know, there's, you know, let's say if there's it doesn't mean that you can have your own boundaries and standards, right? So, but I think if there's something that let's say we talk about commitment, for example, like you just mentioned, if you're ready before the other person, you can't push that person. You have to respect that they're in a different place and you can't push it. You know, it's part of
Exactly.
loving someone too. It's like, okay, well, you know, they're not at that place yet. But if that's not, if it causes you so much suffering, or if it's something that goes against your values or principles in any way, then you need to take a step back. I think, you know, the person who's ready, take a step back. Maybe, I mean, date other people, just take it slow, or just looking at what the relationship is. You know, is it working? Is it functional? Are you just worried about a label? You know, there's all these kinds of things. So, but if someone's cheating, then it's not to do with like, oh, you know, let's be cool about it. And, you know, that's something that's different. If there's some, you know, there are certain things that, you know, you need to address and you
Yes.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
that you need to talk about that or walk
Yeah.
away. Either
And
way, but
I think it's also like, some people have this expectation that if we just started dating, we've been on 3 dates and you see someone else, you're cheating. And
yeah, no,
they've never had a conversation about like, what are we, you know what I mean? Like I've seen this,
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset my boyfriend's cheating. And it's, how long have you known him? Oh, we've been on 3 dates. Like,
yeah,
no, he's not
yeah.
cheating. He's dating. You're not in a
Yeah.
relationship yet.
No, you're so no, and you shouldn't even like give him why why are we giving? And when I was younger, I wish this is kind of why like this I want to do this podcast because I wish I'd been told those things when I was in my 20s or
Oh
as a
my gosh.
teenager.
Yeah,
You
me
know,
too.
oh my god, like it would be so different, right? But like no, and also why are we wanting to give people a privilege they haven't earned? Like are you closing off all your options? I would say like enjoy the fact that you're not. I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but maybe like enjoy the fact that you're not in a relationship yet to go out and date and have fun and just think about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry. Like it's actually, you don't have to answer. You can go and do all your hobbies as much as you want. Like, whether it's knitting or horse riding, I don't know, or go on other dates. You're free to do it because he is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That's a great place to be in. I mean, there's so much
Yeah.
fun to be had.
Yeah. So actually, so now you're talking about, one person thinking they're in a relationship and the other one isn't. How would you like? When do you sort of like? What are your thoughts on defining a relationship? Like, how does that happen?
I think it's got to happen, or well, it happens organically and it doesn't happen organically. I think what you need to be aware of is, if you've been dating for 3 months, maybe that's time to be like to have the what are we talk. If you've been dating for a week, that's far too soon. And I would also caution you against anybody who tries to, like a man who tries to get you to commit within a week or within 2 weeks or within 3 weeks, because there's a thing out there called love bombing that's actually very real and very dangerous that narcissistic people do that can draw you into an abusive relationship.
Can you
But that's,
explain love bombing? Can you explain
yeah,
love bombing?
okay. So I was recently love bombed, and I can't believe I fell for it because I wrote a friggin' book
Yeah.
with all the red flags. So love bombing is when you meet somebody and there's like, it's almost like you have this instant connection and it's very romantic and they sweep you off your feet and you have so much in common with them. You're like, how can I have this much in common with anyone? And usually there'll be like grandiose gestures, like they'll bring you places or they'll buy you things and they'll want to spend all their time with you. So they might text you like 2 or 3 times a day. It might be that you met a week ago and already you're like texting each other good morning, good night in the middle of the day. And they are feeding back to you like what they're doing when people are love bombing. It's like this crazy, like sweep you off your feet relationship that you think you would get in the movies, right? And your emotions are all swept up. But when people are love bombing you, what they're actually doing is they're studying you to see what makes you tick so that they can use that information against you later. So this person that was love bombing me, unfortunately, I realized it, right? And this guy was like really hot, really sexy, but so classic narcissistic personality disorder. He was like, I would talk about yoga and then he would text me and say like, I can't believe you mentioned Kundalini. Or I would say like, personal development stuff makes me hot. And he'd be like, let's do goal setting together. And this person, this is not their personality. He is just,
he's like a chameleon. Like, how do you say
yeah,
in English?
yeah, like a
Chameleon.
chameleon. Yeah, he's just reflecting back what he thinks I want to hear so that I'll fall more deeply for him. And then what he'll do is, because I'll become attached to him emotionally, it becomes a codependent relationship. It goes into a very unhealthy place. And phase 1 of a narcissistic, like a dysfunctional relationship, is love bombing. Phase 2 is devaluation. So what they do in phase 1 is they get you hooked on them and hooked on the adrenaline of the big romantic gesture and who they are and that they have so much in common. And they'll start talking about things like, I think we're soulmates. I think we knew each other in a previous life. Like all this stuff that women love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that we all like, oh my God, this is so great. I think I have met my soulmate. But at this time, you might feel a little off balance. You might feel like, oh, I'm spending too much time with this person, but it's so romantic, I don't care. I'm not getting my work done, but it's so romantic, I don't care. So you start gradually giving more of your energy to them than you do to yourself. And that's when things go crazy, because after you do that, you kind of become dependent on them. And in the devaluation stage, what they start doing is they start using all that information they've been gathering during the love bombing stage to devalue you in very subtle ways. So they might gaslight you. They might say, something might happen and they might deny that it ever happened. So you think that's weird, right? There's little clues that make you start thinking like maybe you're crazy. They start diminishing things that are really important to you, but in passive aggressive ways. So you might share something that you love about yourself that's important to you. Like, for example, I would say like, oh, I wrote this blog post. I'm really proud of it. And they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, that's so cute. Right. And you're like, what? That's not the reaction I expected. And then you start to become like more and more dependent, and it gets into an emotionally abusive relationship. It's really ugly. So love bombing, men who try and get you to commit. And this guy was trying to do that. He's like, what are we? I want us to be in a relationship. And I'm like, I'm not ready to be in a relationship right now with anyone. I'm seeing other people. And he's like, I'm really not comfortable with that. I think you're going to hurt me. And they start making you responsible for their emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is all like, these are huge red flags, but it's so easy to get sucked into it.
Do you know why it's so? Because it's so hard to find. I mean,
yes.
It's easy. It can be very easy to meet men, right? Like you said, like if you're open to it and you're friendly and you can hold a conversation and you look after yourself. But the connection, right, which is actually what it sounds like. I mean, what you just said, like it really, it touched the core. What you just said there, because what they're doing is they're fabricating the connection.
Yes.
So it's false, but because we know how rare it is to have a connection. It's easy to fall for that. We want to believe it, right?
We do, because we want to.
We want to be cynical. Yeah.
No, and what happens is you fall in love with a person who isn't real.
Oh,
because that type of person who does this is they don't have enough to give of themselves, but they need to get their power from other people, like all of their energy from other people, and they will suck like your like it feels like your soul is being sucked dry by them.
Yes. Do you know, this is really interesting, because for 1 second I thought, oh, maybe I've just been love bombed before Christmas. Actually, I realized I haven't. I realized I haven't. I've been love bombed like years ago, and I'll tell you about this. Like, no, I wasn't. This is a different scenario. I wasn't love bombed. But years ago, this is back in 2012. What you just said, and it's funny because at the time I was actually in therapy at the time, and when it ended, I spoke about it to the therapist, and when she heard about his traits, she gave me this like diagnosis for him. And I googled it, and I can't remember what it was called. I wish I remember now. And it literally, a chill went down my spine. And everything. And I think the thing is like he all of that grand gestures, and then after that, once I was hooked, I'm always the one trying to slow things down. I'm never comfortable with someone forcing it too soon, too fast, but I kind of got swept away. I let myself being swept away, so that's on me. But then very quickly he started to criticizing, things I did or anything I wanted to do. And it actually ended up when he ended it, I, like you said about your energy being drained out, when at the end of that relationship, it was almost like I felt like I was taken 10 years back, but I felt 10 years older. It was just like I felt like I had to, like I forgot myself. It was just this horrible feeling of like, I was like, oh, something's really deeply wrong with me. Because not only did, when he ended it, he did it in such a horrible way. There are no good ways, but he did it in a horrible way. But also afterwards, he kept like telling me stuff that was like really not nice, and that you don't want to say to someone who's vulnerable, right? Who's hurting. And whereas I've noticed the difference for example, now, like I was dating someone. It was really short, 2.5 months, but I really liked him, and it ended, whatever. But when it ended, obviously I was like sad and I missed him. But, it wasn't like I didn't fall in love. It was just, it was too short to do it, to any of that. But what I noticed the difference was between that and the love bomb experience is that I actually felt like I grew as a person. My confidence wasn't shattered like the other one. Like my confidence wasn't shattered. Like I knew that what he brought at the time, what he brought to the plate, like added value for me. Like I felt he actually made me feel more confident. Things like that. Now I'm not saying, but yeah, so he made me feel more confident. So it was like an enhancement. And And I think any sort of relationship we have with people, it should actually make you feel enhanced, even if you miss them and you wish it didn't end or whatever it is. Same with friendships, it should be like an enhancement feeling, you know, or adding value by like, you know, helping you being a better person or something. There has to be some sort of value. But I wanted to ask you a question about this guy who love bombed you. I wonder if it was the same. Now, there's something, a very specific trait, and that is part of like the diagnosis like that therapist gave him. During sex, he'd look at himself the whole time in the mirror. Yeah, and and he was a very, very,
He's
yeah.
narcissistic.
It's a bit like was it American Psycho?
Yeah,
Right?
this guy wouldn't look at himself in the mirror during sex.
Look at himself in the mirror the whole time. Even when he would be pleasuring me, it was about him. Like he'd be touching himself. Everything was always about him. He was a very selfish lover, very selfish lover.
Yeah.
And so my memory of our sex life is very different to his.
Yeah.
Like when he would like, you know, recounter it like a year later to me, it was like, oh, you know, and I was like, no. You know, yeah, and it's that thing, it's the draining thing. It's definitely
like I was in a relationship with this guy for 3 weeks and I left it and I was like, where did I go? It's that feeling of like you have disappeared because they suck all your energy out of you, all of your like life force. And it's so if anybody's listening and you are in this type of relationship, I just want to just put it out there, like leave.
Yeah,
you know, if you can, like block all contact and just get away from them because they're dangerous and they're just really, it's going to be not good for your life.
Let me see. So because I was trying to think how we got to that. It was because of labeling the relationship.
How to have that chat about like when is the time? What are we? How to have the what are we chat? And I think that's something that'll come naturally. And I think too, you know, like I think it's important, not on the first date, or maybe not even on like the second date, but as you get to know someone, to let them know what you're looking for. Like to let them know, like, I am looking for a long-term relationship, or I am looking for this type of thing, or I need this type of person in my life, so that it doesn't come as like a shock.
Yeah.
You know, when you kind of like lay it on them and are like, what are we, right? Because if you let them know up front, like, these are my expectations, not my expectations, but this is what I'm looking for. So that if they're not that person, then you know, they know, and it's not like they've been like, oh no, I thought we were just friends with benefits.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's funny because it's a hard one to have actually, that conversation, because sometimes, I mean, because sometimes you're not looking for something, but it's more like the person that you fall for, and then you're like, actually, I want more. But like, yeah, like you said about staying out front, if you're not looking for anything serious, you have to listen to that, you know, as the receiver of that. And at the same time, because I've seen friends, you know, sort of like misinterpreting what the guy says. So for example, the guy would go on a date and say, so my friend may ask, you know, oh, so what are you looking for? And the guy would say, well, you know, eventually, you know, I want to be in a relationship, get married, have kids. But what the girl sometimes hears, and guys hear that too, sometimes what the person hears is that, oh, they want a relationship with me, but it's not. They didn't say that. They just said this is what they want, and there's a big difference. And people get carried away and offer themselves to someone else based on that one line. It's just an opinion. They didn't say an opinion about you. It's their opinion in general. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so it's funny because I mean, do you think like the woman or the man should be like in a heterosexual relationship? Do you think like the man or the woman should be bringing this up? Is it like, do you have like a rule about that?
No, I think it's whoever feels the need to define things first. So I don't think it makes a difference if the guy brings it up. You know, I've certainly been with people who are like, what are we? And I've been like, I don't know. You know? And then I've been in situations with where I've been with people and I've been like, what are we? Yeah, but I do think like women, we tend to rush things. And you know, for myself, I have a rule, and I'm not a big fan of rules because I think you need to make your own rules. Like, don't follow someone else's rule if it's not the right rule for you. but figure out what your own rules are and know that your rules will change throughout life. But for myself right now, I have a rule that, I'm not going to commit to anyone until I know them for at least 3 months, period.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a
Preferably
good rule.
6, to be honest. Like 6 is a long time to know someone, but like I think somewhere between 3 to 6 months, I'll have a good handle on who a person is, how I feel when I'm with them, whether we have similar values, whether there's somebody that I enjoy being with, like you said, somebody who makes me feel more of myself. So like for me, it's really about like taking it slow, slow, slow. And I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything wrong with that. That's a form of self-respect. That's saying, are you worthy of this?
Yeah, because you're getting to know someone, right?
Yeah.
So it's also finding out if they're a match. I think 3 to 6 months is like, that's definitely, I don't think that's too long. I think it's a good amount of time. I think I think it's important to warm up to someone. And I mean, I wish I'd known this when I was younger, because I definitely didn't think that way. I was like, I would actually bring it up. I said, so are we together? And I used to think,
Yeah.
I was so naive. I used to think that because you had sex with someone, they were automatically your boyfriend. That's how,
Yeah.
like, how little I understood about this. But now I'm just like, actually, I'd like to get to know you, because you realize, that it takes a long time to get to know someone. So yeah, I think definitely like taking it. See, for me, I have a different opinion on like who would sort of bring it up, because in my experience, when I have brought it up in the past, it sort of blew up in my face, in the sense that I've got a feeling that like the dynamic with like a straight guy is that, especially if like I'm attracted to like more traditional guys, like old fashioned, more alpha. Some women are more like into like the more beta guy, like, well, I guess I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a PC term, I don't care, but it's like the more feminine, sort of more in touch with the emotion things. Like I call like a more like alpha guy who takes charge, and with them, my experience is like bringing it up is the worst thing to do, because they're like, wait, that should be in. They don't say it, but I think in their mind it's like, wait, I should be the one bringing this up. Now I feel like you're making the decision. So there is a way of like, I think like as a woman, like you are still empowered if you. It's almost like you not making them believe it's their decision, but a little bit in a way.
Yeah, 100%. It is
Let
making
them.
them believe it's their decision, because what you do
Yeah.
is you put it on the line. You say, here are your options. You
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah. But I think like if we say it outright, it's not like if we just, I think if you have enjoyed the relationship and if he doesn't bring it up, and I think if you step back a little bit, he's going to feel that. And if he likes you, he's actually going to say, hey, by the way, I'm not seeing anyone else. Like, there'll be something, they'll bring it up themselves. But I think it's like that thing with the friendship we were talking about earlier, would we do this to friends, or would we do this to, then why are we doing it to men? So I think it's like, if someone pushes, because I've had guys forcing it, like not forcing it, but they just said, wait, we should be boyfriend girlfriend, or we should have kids in a year. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I feel like it's all being pushed on me, and it's a horrible feeling. So I've come to learn actually I shouldn't be doing that, with like the other way around. But I don't know if it's because I like more alpha guys, and so like definitely like bringing it up has always like not worked. So I just now let them bring it up. If the timeline, if I feel like I'm too invested and they're not, then I take sort of like I take stock of my own feelings and go, actually, okay, so what's going on? Okay, so I need to I sort of like need to manage myself, and like either, so that I don't put the onus on that one person in a way. But it's not easy to do, because when you like someone, right, you don't want to be seeing other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard when it's not as natural, I think, it's not as natural for me.
No, it is. It is a challenge to keep seeing other people.
Yeah.
But
How do you do that? How would you advise to do that?
I would say do it anyway.
Yeah.
If there's a part of you inside that's like, as much as I enjoy this person, this doesn't feel right, or this person is not on the same page as I am. As much as you enjoy them, like seeing other people, it's almost like investing in your future, right?
Oh, I like that.
It's like looking at it as like, okay, so maybe I don't want to hang out with this. Like, I like this other person, not as much. They don't turn me on as much. They don't excite me as much. But this other person, I'm getting a sense like something might not work out there. So I'm going to spend time with this other person to get to know them, right? And it's like, it's kind of almost like going through the motions, right? It's like, if you're looking for a job and you're like, oh, this job seems really great, but you don't know 100% that you have that job yet, you keep looking for other jobs.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and it's just trusting that even if this doesn't turn out, there will be something that's going to turn out for you. So
And
it's,
all, yeah. Sorry, go
yes.
on.
So sometimes it is kind of going through the motions, and I'm going to date this other person, even though I'm really into this other person. But it's worth it, because then you come out and you're like, okay, I didn't put everything emotionally into that one person.
And you know, like I love what you said about like it's a way to invest in your future. To see it, you know, look at it that way. And I think I was like, this is fantastic, because this is almost like what a guy would say too. And I think this is true. Like I think it's you know, it's, you can almost say that, because if you're not if you're not exclusive, if you're not boyfriend girlfriend, then you're not exclusive in my mind. But you know, it doesn't mean, even if you're not officially exclusive, one of you will probably be more exclusive. But I think going, you know, like you said, like going out and dating other people, in a way, it's actually even good for the unit, because if you're out there and getting sort of your own emotional cup filled, I don't know how else to say this, but if you're going out there and distract yourself, you're not going to be so intense and crazy with that one person who's not giving you the commitment that you want.
Exactly.
It's actually good for the team. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may, and I don't recommend this as like a jealousy tactic or anything, but one thing that might happen is the other person might say, "Oh, wait a second, no, I don't like her seeing other people. I want to lock this down for myself."
Yes,
Right?
exactly. Yeah. Okay. So are there any like we're gonna go into like a little round of like awkward questions and situations in a little bit, where you can then come up and tell us like how you'd handle them. But just before we sort of like close off this part of this episode, are there any other red flags? You mentioned about the love bombing. Are there any red flags that we should, in your opinion, we should all look out for?
Yeah. So I would look out for anybody who is one with someone else. And it seems really obvious, but sometimes
That'll be a deal breaker, right?
yeah, like deal breakers are like, okay, they already have another partner, or this happens a lot. I'm not sure how old you are, but when you get into your 40s and 50s, you start meeting a lot of divorced men, and some of them have not moved out from their spouse's place yet.
Oh, no way.
Because of the cost. Like I know, like London very expensive, Toronto very expensive, New York very expensive. Like there's cities that are super expensive to find your own place to live. And so you'll meet people who are still living with their ex, even though they're like, no, we're separated, we just do it for the kids. To me, that is a red flag. You need to differentiate yourself and separate yourself fully from your spouse, no matter how good friends you are. And I'm saying that with quotes, before you move out. So anybody who's, even though they're separated, they still live with their partner, I would say that is a big red flag. I'd say men who are like unemployed, broke, the men who seem too good to be true, that, and not, I'm saying too good to be true right off the bat, not too good to be true after you've known them for 6 months and you're like, wow, I've really gotten to know you and you are really awesome. I'd say men who, the guys who text and then never ask you out.
Yeah.
I call these guys groundhogs. Like they pop up every now and then on your radar and they flirt with you and then they disappear. And they're all talk and no action. Also guys who are all talk and no action, guys who have like big ambitions, but they never do shit about it.
Yeah, I'm all about the actions. I rarely listen to what they say. Actually, I will hear it, but I don't. That's not what I put the value on. I put on like, what is he actually doing?
Yeah, put it totally 100% on what he's doing in life. That's how you should evaluate. And this is like, and I think some women get into this trap too, the potential trap. Oh, he's got so much potential. I could fix him with just enough love. Oh, that's another one you want to watch out for. Anybody who you feel like, if he only had enough love because he had such a rough upbringing, he just needs love. That's a big red flag. Like, run. You're not going to fix him. You're never going to give him the amount of love that he needs. He's got to do that himself.
Yeah, so like any projects, basically, any fixer uppers, you need to leave.
Fixer uppers, forget it. You need one that's already done, right? You need already complete. You're not like a renovation machine. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, this is not like IKEA furniture buying.
Yeah, and I'd also say men who, like, when you do get physical with them, like, even if they touch you, if they make you feel creepy, that's a sign. Like, I would trust your intuition. Sometimes you're like, oh, he's so nice, we get along so well, but when he kisses me, I feel like vomiting. Like, that's just a sign you're not going to be compatible. Yeah. Like, it's important that the physical is there as well as the emotional and the mental and the spiritual and everything else. So, really trust your intuition. Your intuition is going to guide you to the right people. and away from the wrong people. And it's hard sometimes because, man, your intuition, like you can look at, they can be so good on paper, right? Sometimes people are like, or they have so much status, or they're so good looking, or they're so funny, or they're so popular. Sometimes we get blinded by the externals and we don't see the person inside. And it's really about like, who is that person inside and how do they connect with the person I am inside? And do we both feel better because of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm sort of like this year. I'm done with like guys that are exciting. I'm sort of yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm over it. It's like because a lot of it is just like it just that's what it is. Like at the beginning, and then there's nothing. Like they
No.
just turn the minute you get a bit closer, they just
Yes.
turn into a whole different person, and it literally makes you like physically sick.
Yes.
What it does for me, and
That's good.
yeah,
And that is
yeah,
great. That's your body saying like, what? Nope, stay away. Anybody that your
yeah,
body, you go like shudder,
yeah.
whatever. Listen to your body. Your body knows more sometimes than your mind. But
It does.
except when it's hot, right? Except when you want to sleep with them and they're bad for you. Don't listen to your
Yeah.
body in that case. In that case, you have to get back in your head.
Yeah, it's like hormones are powerful, right? It's just
Yes,
yeah.
hormones are
So
very powerful.
they're very powerful. Any other red flags?
Mm, I would say, what else could we look out for? I mean, knowing, just having your standards, right? Like knowing what is okay for you. Like, if it like things like alcohol, drug abuse, probably unless you're an alcoholic or a drug abuser yourself, and sometimes what looks like drug abuse to one person might not look like drug abuse to another. So knowing what you're okay with, like I cannot date people who smoke weed. That's just the thing for me. I just,
Yeah.
I used to smoke weed, but I don't anymore. And I've had bad experiences with people who were like chronic and thought it was just a habit. So it's like, know yourself, know what's okay for you. I would also watch out for mama's boys. That's the other thing. Like a guy who is not fully separated from his mother, or is like super enmeshed in his family, and is like his mom comes first in his life. I haven't had this experience very much, but I know that women do have this. Like the guys who it's like all of it, like their mom still looks after them even though they're in their 30s. Like that's a flag.
Yeah. There's like you can have like a good relationship with your family, but if this like constant all the time with the mom and
Yes.
she's overbearing, especially if she's overbearing and he has to ask for her opinion all the time. No,
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
out. It's such a
Yeah.
turn off. Yeah, and
It
it
is.
shows that you're still a kid, right? It's just
It is.
it's not masculine to me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'd say the final thing for myself is I don't date people who have like mental illness. So by that I mean I don't date people who are depressed, and I don't date people who are battling chronic anxiety. And this is my choice because I tend to get into that caretaker mode and that fixer upper mode. I know this is not a road that I want to go down, so I just don't go down that road.
Yeah, I think like if you're definitely someone who's like a fixer and a rescuer, that would probably
Mhm.
become like an unhealthy dynamic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just don't, that's for me, that's like, no, that's not the, and if you're with somebody and they become depressed, that's a different thing. Because depression, mental health affects us all, but it's just like, that's for me, that's a hard limit. So it's knowing your own, knowing look at, like, I would suggest people listening, look at how your last relationships ended, what went wrong, and where are the red flags in those relationships that you can, erect in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like you have to know what's right for you and what's not. There's nothing wrong with having your own opinion and your own values over things, right? So you just have to respect those. I'll show you one red flag that haven't mentioned yet is like when the person doesn't wear condoms. Right? So
My
like
God.
yeah,
Yeah.
to me that's a huge
Flag.
that's actually like an actual deal breaker really for me, like in the sense
Yes.
that like then I will then I mean I wouldn't do it without it, so I'll have my own. However, like if we don't have any, then we just don't do it. But
Yes.
my worry with that is that first of all, especially when you know that person is out there, you know is out there using their options, like they have options. They're a good looking guy, they're
Mhm.
very chatty, and they have options, right? I mean, you're attracted to them, so there are other people, there's gonna be
Yeah.
other girls too, right? So but if you're the one, if I'm the one who has to go, yeah, no, we well, definitely using condoms,
Mhm.
then to me, my worry, the reason why for me is like, and actually it becomes a deal breaker, is because it means that the time when we then become exclusive and we then choose alternative options for contraception or whatever, you know, and we've been tested, there's always a risk. Why? There's always a risk that someone's going to slip. But if someone from the get-go is not someone who thinks about condoms as like needed for with a stranger or someone you don't know,
yes,
or not even sure because I'm not a stranger to them, but like if they don't think it's like needed, and you know they have white night stands, there's two things that worries me. One is, what disease are you going to bring back to me? And two, who are you going to be making pregnant? Because a lot of them, like the guys who don't wear condoms, they just go, yeah, but she's on the pill. Like they just trust it. First of all, there's no guarantees. The women lie about it as well. They lie about being on contraception. They will lie to you about being clean, you know, and it's just like,
know, right? Like they absolutely might not know. They might not know that they have something.
Listen, they may be having 10 kids like they're not aware of, you know, and they may have like got chlamydia and whatnot, you know, or AIDS, all kinds of stuff. And I think for me it's like, I don't want to like expect the worst out of someone, but I know that even someone with the best intentions and with the same values as you, all of that stuff, people make mistakes, you know, and people do cheat. It's a thing. I'm not saying it's not condoning it, but just like it can happen, right? We all have flaws or make mistakes. But for me, if I know that from the get-go this person doesn't, the only reason why we were using condom is because I was asking for it, but they're very liberal about it. How can I trust that when you're out there having a slip and you're cheating, you probably, because I'm not there, you're probably not going to be using condoms, because if the other person doesn't care. So that to me, that's a risk. That's too much of a risk. And it's really annoying because you could be meeting someone who's like amazing. Like it's happened to me recently. The person's like, great. But that thing is like, like, fuck, I wish you hadn't said that to me. I wish you didn't say that to me, because like now I can't look at you the same. I can't trust. It's going to be an anxiety for me in the future that I can't.
It's also, and it's a bit of ignorance on their part, right? Like I think that's just
100%.
Yeah, they're not that smart. If they're not aware of the risks of not wearing condoms and they think they can get away with it, they're really not that intelligent, and that is something that turns me off. So I think that is a huge red flag.
Yeah, it's actually a red flag. You'll still use the condoms and have sex with them, but then eventually, you know, in your heart of heart, you walk away and you're like, I can't get on board with this. Can't get on board with this. Okay, super. So I want to go into the section of like trick questions or situations when dating and how to handle them. So I'm gonna fire some at you and just to tell me what you'd answer. Okay, so you're on a date, you know, probably like, this is usually a first date question, by the way. How come a beautiful I can't say, wait a minute. Okay. How come you're single? How come a beautiful woman like you is single?
Right. So then you would say, because I am very selective about who I let in.
Okay, cool. Because I hate that question, because I'm like, well, you're single too, so
No, you just say, you know what? Because I'm very selective. Or you could be honest. You could be like, I've been busy, or you know, I like being single. Right? There's nothing wrong with saying I'm single because I really enjoy being single. I have a lot of fun with my friends. You know, like.
How would you say, like, would you say thing like, I'm just going to give you like an example of an answer. Do you think that's like pretentious if I said, oh, I just haven't, you know, like, well, I guess, definitely like busy. But if I said like, you know, well, I just haven't met someone that meets my standards.
That's an awesome answer.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
Cool. What it does is it makes the other person want to be like, if they're attracted to you, they're like, it motivates them to meet your standards. So one, find out what your standards are, and two, to meet your standards.
Okay. So another question. That will probably be like after sex, I'd imagine, like a few days or something. I don't know, a little while. They say. So how many men have you slept with?
Yeah, that's tricky. So what I say when people say that is, as I say, oh, aren't you forward? Like that's what I say. I say, no, I usually don't tell people that until the 20th date.
Do you actually even give them? Do you actually give them a number?
No, I wouldn't give them a number. Honestly,
what would you say?
Honestly, I don't know how many people I've slept with.
No, but also, like I find like it's a private thing. Like, it shows the insecurity.
Like you can say to them, "I'm not comfortable sharing that with you."
Yeah.
Like, I
And
think
also,
that's a perfectly fine thing to say is like, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable sharing that with you.
yeah, and also it sort of makes them look a little bit insecure, and that they're like thinking that you may have had better, or I don't know, like it's just this or like I think sometimes what men like don't discern, some of them, the ones who ask those kind of questions, is like, just because you're feeling comfortable with them and like the sex is natural and flowy doesn't mean that that's how it's like. That doesn't mean actually, it doesn't actually talk to, not it doesn't even matter, but it doesn't actually talk to how many people you slept with. It just
No.
talks to the interaction, how comfortable you are, and things. It's like a dance, right? Sex is a dance. And,
Mhm.
if you have a good dance partner, you don't have to have had that many lessons,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Men sometimes are so. Anyway, okay. This is like I've had this on first dates. Do you want kids?
Oh, so I would be honest with that. If you do, then say yes. And if not, then say no. And if you're on the fence, say I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Yeah, because for me that's like it's like a trick question, because I've never been. I've always been more like, I care more about the relationship, and if we want to have kids, cool. If we don't, that's cool too. Like, I don't think there's one way to be happy.
Yeah.
But it bugs me because I'm like, that question, no one can answer that right, in my opinion, because let's say, even if you're not sure you want kids, but with a certain person, you may want to with that person, just because
Mhm.
it's a dynamic, you feel safe in a different way, or I don't know,
Yeah.
or it just makes sense. With some, maybe with another partner, you feel just as safe and great with them, but you feel like it's more like an adventurous partnership, so you want to maybe travel more and
Yeah.
get white carpets, I don't know, like, you just may. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's being honest, right? It's like it's what you just said is great. Like, however you feel, if you're somebody who desperately wants to have kids and you're like, yes, I want to have kids, then, I mean, I've always dreamt of having, like, two or three or 10 or whatever. Or if you're somebody who's like on the fence and saying, yeah, like you just said, like it depends on the situation. And if you're somebody who's like, excuse me, for example, for me, who is not going to have kids ever because I'm past the age of having kids and I really don't want kids and I don't have children and I don't want to be, I don't want to be someone's, like, a stepmom to a young kid. Then it's saying those things too.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, if you have a straight answer, and if you actually know already, then it's, yeah, a lot easier to answer.
Yeah, and if you don't know, you can say, like, I'm not sure. It depends on the relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If someone asks you, how long have you been single for?
Oh, that's a good one. How long have you been single for? I would answer that honest too.
Yeah.
Because I think what they're looking for there too is they might be looking for multiple things, like, are you rebounding? Which is
Oh,
a
yeah, of
valid
course.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think, some people might think they're judging you because you've been single for a long time and how come nobody wants you, which is kind of bullshit. But some people might be asking, like, if you've only been single for 3 months and it was a 7-year relationship, well, then you're probably the rebound.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So I
agree.
would I would be totally honest. And I've dated, like, people who were like, yeah, like, I've asked them, so how long have you been single? Or as they talk about having been in a relationship, and I'm like, oh, when did you guys break up? And they're like, oh, 2 months ago. And I'm like, oh, you need, then it's like red flag, red flag, red flag. I'm like, you need more time to yourself. You need to
Yeah.
date around. You need to, yeah, I'm happy to, have fun with you, but I'm not going to consider you as a serious long-term partner because you don't know who you are right now.
Yeah, you see, yes, I agree with you on that. But obviously, everyone operates slightly differently. Like, I know people who've gone from one marriage straight into another relationship.
Hmm.
Both parties were like that. They just moved in pretty quickly and stuff. So everyone sort of operates slightly differently. Like,
Yeah.
for me, I'd be like, you're like, because I'm a person who needs to sort of like, I'm very comfortable in my own company, and I think relationships usually, that's when I sort of, at the beginning, there's like an imbalance that happens. I'm like out of my equilibrium. So it's always more the idea of a relationship at the beginning is always more of an anxious thought for me. It's not something I naturally want to fall into. But
Mm-hmm.
once I'm past the beginning stages, then it's great. And the beginning for me is always the worst, but then afterwards I'm good. So if someone is not comfortable in their own being alone for a long time, it's probably not going to be a good match, because they're going to be wanting different things from me, and it's just, yeah, we just have different values on that.
Yeah.
Not one is not better than the other. It's just that it's not going to be a match. I'm not going to be able to trust it. I'm like, wait a minute, how can you go straight from here to here? Like, personally, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
if so, okay, so let's say someone hasn't had like long-term relationships, they've just had like short terms, and someone asks them, okay, how long was your last relationship, or what's the longest your relationship was, and you don't want
Mhm.
to say it, what would you say to them?
I mean, you could always say that. I'm not comfortable answering that.
Okay.
Like, you don't have to tell anybody anything you don't want.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
I agree.
it's totally like your job is not to get them to like you. Your job is to assess whether they are someone that you like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I'll this next one, this may be actually sort of may have actually kind of maybe been answered when we talk about people's insecurities and people love bombing others. But if someone like you dating and they say, oh, do you do this with other guys, or have you done this with other guys? So let's say it could be like talk French, or or whatever it is, like I don't know,
Yeah,
something that you guys do or whatever, like that's sexy or not.
yeah,
How what do you answer that? Because I mean, I'm 40, so I mean, I'm not 16, and whatever.
yeah,
But so why would you? Because obviously it's coming from a place of insecurity. When
yeah.
sometimes when I ask that, what do you say to that?
That's interesting. I've never had that. But I would say, like, what's behind that question?
Oh yeah, it's like answer with another question.
Yeah, I'd be like, what's behind that? Are you worried that I'm not like what's like what? Where's this question coming from?
Yeah, right. Because we never ask guys. I mean, I never asked guys, so have you done this with other girls? I mean, I'm just sort of, it's just like, it's funny. It's true. It's a weird
Yeah,
question. Yeah. Oh, have you ever had this? Now when I was younger, I had like guy commenting on like my eating habits. Because I always had a healthy appetite, and
yeah,
but if someone have you had someone say, oh, are you actually going to, so let's say if you're on a date, okay, now I've never had that specific question, but I found this question online. It made me laugh because I remember what it was like when someone made like a a comment about how much I ate. But this is like, okay, so you're at the restaurant, let's say this is like the first date, and you're just ordering food, and the guy goes, are you actually going to eat all of that, because you're ordering a lot of food? I mean, for me that's a deal breaker, like straight away.
I've done that to guys.
Have you said that to guys?
I was on a date once, and this guy kept ordering so much food. It was like a Korean barbecue, and he must have
Mm.
ordered like I don't know how many plates of stuff. And I was like, dude, I'm not gonna eat all that. And I was like, are you serious? You're gonna eat all that? And then of course we both like ate all of it and rolled out of the place. But yeah, if somebody says to you, "Are you gonna eat all that?" I would say, "Hell yeah."
Oh yeah, okay. No, this is so
I was
interesting
like,
because
I'm energetic, baby. I gotta feed this body. You
yeah,
gotta keep
this
up
this
with me.
this is so interesting because I read this question differently. Well, I actually like how you interpret it. It's like a lot more light and fun and just like easy. Whereas
Mhm.
I was sort of picturing the guy saying that and being cheap about it in terms of like,
Yeah,
what,
yeah, like
how much
snarky.
how much is the bill gonna be? Like, am I gonna have to foot this bill?
Oh,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Or yeah, or maybe it could be like, let's say if I was insecure about my weight when I was younger, I may be like,
mhm.
wait, does he think I'm a pig or something?
Yeah,
So it's interesting. It's all about interpretation, right?
yes, completely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, okay. So you're on a first date and it's going well and you want to see the guy again.
yeah,
Let's say the first date you actually, you get drinks and then you actually go for a meal. So there's a restaurant, there's a
yeah.
bill going on. Who pays?
So who pays for the first date? What I would suggest is that you come prepared to pay your half, and if he offers, you let him pay.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like, I think I do have one more thing I'd say to that. Is like, if I know, because I know like this is what, like, if I, like I said, like, if you want to see him again,
Mhm.
like if I know I don't want to see the guy again, I'll insist on paying half.
Hmm. Yeah,
Unless he really insists, and I'm like, okay, fine. Like if he chooses a restaurant, let's say, and if it's something like, something I wouldn't have picked because it's like too expensive for me, for
yeah,
example, then
yeah,
that's like his decision and it's like a bit on him.
yeah.
But if I know I don't want to see the guy again, like let's say something happens over dinner and I'm like, oh, I'm put off, um, I'll insist. But then, then you have that conversation then. But yeah, I think if you definitely want to see him, and I like the guy to pay for the first yeah,
Yeah,
the first
and I
date.
agree too.
Absolutely.
I think we need to let him, if he offers, like allow him to, if you like him and you want to see him again, because it's actually you're letting him, you're showing him that you're capable of receiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually something you mentioned also in the book about letting the man be a man, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think this is an example of that.
Yeah. And I think, to be fair, a lot of like, it depends how old you are, because I think guys in their 20s are really confused about this. Like younger guys, it's really hard because they don't know what to do. Like, and
Yes.
they might have been, raised separately, like women should pay for their half, so they might feel different about it. But I think, I don't know, I like the old fashioned values. I like the man opening the door. I like the man paying. Like, it makes me feel feminine.
I agree. I'm the same. And I have girlfriends who we totally disagree on this. I've got
Yeah.
girlfriends who like straight, they would always want to pay half. And it's interesting because I used to be like that when I was younger. I used to always want to pay half because I didn't want to feel like I was obligated to the man. But that was
Mhm.
that was my chip on my shoulder, which I've
Yes.
realized, right? And
Yeah.
once I understood that, wait a minute, hang on, I'm getting ready. Like there's not even just there's obviously the economics of it, depending on where you live, but usually man like earn more than women, and there's all kinds of stuff behind it. Getting ready, makeup is expensive, all of that, everything's expensive for us to get ready, waxing, you name it, it's all expensive, right? It all
Mhm.
adds up. So actually, if you go to a meal, there's a good likelihood, a good chance that the woman has actually spent more just to get ready, like, and maintenance in general, right? But
Yeah.
but there's also, so that's the economic side, but there's also the more, like you're talking about, like feeling feminine. There's the more primal part of it,
Right.
about it's like a man actually enjoys taking care of it.
Yeah.
It's part of their masculine thing, it's part of their thing. Like they don't have much else. We have that one defining things, we can make babies. Other
Mhm.
than that, like, it's there's not much, what else is going to differentiate. And I think that side of it, a guy
Mhm.
who's like traditional and manly definitely wants to foot the bill. But it is confusing for a lot of men because they come across women who get offended by it.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a kind of worm for some people, but and it's, a lot of people have different opinions on it. But I agree with you, like opening the door, all of that stuff, love that.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, once for myself, this was a big battle, because for a long time I felt like I needed to show my independence. I needed to show guys that I'm not dependent on them. And so I would pay all the time, right? I'd be like, no, I insist on paying. No, you can't pay for me. Or if they open the door, I'd be like, thank you. But then I'd open the door for them. And like, and I was very, like, I wasn't a person who would allow a guy to pay or do nice things for me. And once I started doing this on my 100 dates that I went on, everything shifted. And I started to,
Yes.
like, it literally shifted, like, the types of people that I was attracting, the types of dates I was going on, the how I felt on dates, the level of attraction, like guys who were chasing me. And I think it was just because I just literally said, I just softened, and I was like, I'm going to let you be a man, and I'm going to enjoy being female, and like, or like being feminine, and I'm going to let you woo me, like, and that's not such an old term, but I'm going to let you pursue me. I'm going to let you be the one who chases, and I'm going to enjoy this and play this game. And
I
it
agree.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it just changed everything. All of a sudden I had like much better luck dating.
I totally agree with you. And I think, because I think there's a difference, like love and sex is not supposed to be PC, it's not supposed to be correct, and has got nothing to do with politics, right? So the
Exactly.
whole about, who pays for what, and the feminine and the masculine, it's just nature. Sometimes it's also like accepting what nature is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not down to gender. Sometimes the woman is way more masculine and the guy is way more feminine, and it works, right?
Yeah.
But it's that polarity. So if if like you and I, like, we're quite feminine, we're feminine. I mean, I'm not into like makeup and stuff, but I consider myself feminine. I'm quite a feminine person. And that's why I like the more masculine guys. I love that. And it enhances that attraction. And yeah, I agree with you. Just everything that you said just earlier. Now I've
Yeah.
lost my
I think
train of
I think
thoughts, but it is like important to recognize that if
and
you're
I
into
think
it.
I think some women get what they don't like about it is they feel like it's an exchange. Like, if I accept a dinner from him, he's going to expect sex, and that is not true. From the
It's
guys that
not
I
true.
talked to, that is not true. Like, I talked to a whole bunch of guys writing this book, and none of them were like, if I pay for a woman for dinner, do I expect sex? They're like, if I get sex, great, but I'm not buying her sexual services or her favors. Like, that's not how they look at it. So it's like, it's when somebody pays for, you know, your dinner or buys you something nice, it's a gift.
Yes. And
It's
also,
not.
the value you bring is not just sex. Like it's like the value he brings isn't just money. So it's
Exactly.
like, you know, if that's how you look at it, then that's maybe something like the person needs to address with themselves and look into, because I think he values your company. You're there. You're like, you know, you're enjoying each other's company, and he wants to do something. You know, like, you know, do something like whether it's like paying for dinner or coming up with like a great idea for the next date. And you know, I wanted to mention the thing about, you know, with the money side. Like I used to date broke guys a lot. Like I've had my fair share of like dating really broke guys, and it's not fun. And it's and
No.
it's not fun. And also because I tend to be quite generous. This is why also. So this is why also maybe if someone doesn't like someone else to pay, maybe they need to look at how they look see money. But I'm quite a generous person with someone. I love buying gifts for them. So I may not be paying for the meal, but I'll get them things, you know, or I may just get the cinema tickets, you know, in advance to make sure, like, just to offer something or whatever it is. But so if someone is very petty with money or quite tight with money, it's not a dynamic I get on board. And I've been the person who, you know, gone Dutch for every meal, and there's nothing dries you up quicker. I'm so sorry it's graphic, but it really does. Like, it's just a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling. And like every single meal, like not even the first date, you know, it's like awful thing. And yeah, and you know, even once, like when I was way younger, I paid, like I helped with like rent money for this guy I was dating. I'm not doing that anymore. Like I'm done with that. So I have absolutely no issues letting a guy pay for the meal. And I do know I don't owe him anything. But that's something I had to learn. And it's also
Yes.
letting go of control, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's not, you think you owe him. No, you have actually, you can empower yourself, and you've actually brought value. What else do you think? You don't just bring sex to the table. There's other
No.
things. Yeah.
Your conversation, your company, your energy, like
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, guys love to be surrounded by women they're attracted to, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
um, let's have a look. Let me just see here. Mm. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I love this bit that you have in your book. You gotta, like, at the end, I'm gonna ask you to, you know, tell us all like where to find it and the name of your book and everything. In your book, you have this great bit which I never thought of, like great activities to do on dates. And I thought it
Yeah.
was so refreshing because it can be so samey, right? And like if you do an activity with someone, you get to see another part of them. So, like, how did you get to come up with all these ideas? And can you share some of them with us, like of dates, activities? And
Sure. So how did I come up with them? I think I've always been a person who, you know, like when I was a kid, I would look at the what's on listings and like get really excited about things to do in the city where I lived. I've just been a person who, like, I love lists. I love to know what's going on in my city. I love to plan different outings, like, and to explore my city. So I think that's kind of where it just originated from. It's just kind of who I am. I'm a person who's always like, what can I do this month? What can I do next month? What can I do 2 months from now? What's coming up? What do I want to hang out with my girlfriends and do? What would make a good date? So yeah, so I have this list of 167 activities that you can do on a date. And some of them, I mean, it depends where you are, but I mean, living in London, or if you're living in a big city, you definitely have a lot of variety. The best dates are ones that where you do things together and you can walk and talk, is what I call it. So like going to an art gallery or a museum or to the zoo, or walking around a different neighborhood, or going to a flea market outside, or going to like another sort of market, or a street festival. All of those are like fantastic dates because it gives you an opportunity to see how they are out in public, and also it gives you an opportunity to enjoy what's going on around you and kind of like, you know, walking and talking, doing something together, and to have different interactions together. So those are things that I really recommend. I don't recommend, you know, dinner and a movie. Dinner is okay, or dinner after a movie is okay, because then you can discuss the movie. But if you're just going to a movie, you don't have any opportunities to interact, and you also don't have any opportunities to kind of like do like little flirty things if you like them, right? What
yeah,
I do, my strategy for dating is, and it's kind of selfish, but whatever, it's my life. I make a list of all the things that are coming up in my city in the next season. And I literally be like, oh, I want to go to this thing. 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 And then when I meet somebody that I like, I will drop a hint that, oh, you know what? This thing is coming up. I'd really like to go to that. And then wait for them to ask me.
That's such a good idea.
I totally manipulate my dating life so that even if the date doesn't go well, I still do the things I want.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah, I'm so lazy with that. I need to get on board with that and actually.
Yeah, I think the worst date is coffee, right? People are like, let's meet for coffee. And that's like, what? Like, ugh. If you're into someone, do not get coffees and go for a walk. Or grab a coffee and do something interactive with your coffee. Don't just sit there and grill each other across the table. That is like the worst way to create a vibe.
Yeah, it's like a job interview.
Yeah, and nobody likes that. Nobody wants to,
like you said, like the sitting across from each other. I think that's also the worst position to sit.
Yes.
Like I like to be 90 degrees, the person is on, there's like an angle, the table angle is between us instead of the length of the table. So this way it doesn't feel like if you're slightly closer physically, but you're also not looking at across like an interview.
Yeah. Or sitting side by side at a bar is a great place too sometimes.
Yeah, that is actually, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so June, can you please tell us where can people find you? Where can they buy your book? Because in there, I know we spoke about loads of stuff, but in your book, you go into a lot of more details and you talk about other things as well that we didn't touch on today. And there's the whole list of the activities which are divided by categories as well. So if you're not into walking, there'll be other things there's just really great stuff in there. So can you tell us how we can all find all of that?
Yes. So my book's name is called Love Lessons from a Lapdancer, an unconventional guide for women who want to understand men, date with confidence, and put themselves first. And it's available on Amazon, and it will be available on Amazon in the UK. So it's by June M. E.M. is my pen name that I use because I wrote this while I was working in the government. So I didn't want people to know about it. But Love is available on Amazon in Europe and in North America. And you can find out more about me and the things I do at junemorrow.com. So JUNEMORROW.com, or you can look me up on Facebook.
Perfect. Okay, well, this has been fantastic, June. Thank you so much for your time today and for being game, talking about all of this. Yeah, and look, I'll be watching your progression on everything, and all the best of everything. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Angie. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe on iTunes or anywhere else you listen to podcasts from. Drop me questions or any topics you'd like me to cover next time. Please send me a message. You can easily find me on Angie-s.com. So that's angies.com, spelled Angie-s.com. Come and join me on the website or find me on Instagram at The Health Lifestylist. All the links are in the show notes. And until then,
using health inappropriately.